I'm not sure when everything started, but I started seeing message after message when I went back to check on my Twitter account. At this point, I don't really log into it all that often. I don't have an app for it. So things can grow out of hand without me being aware of it until it's too late, until something has gotten quite far along. It came in mentions on my Twitter feed, and ultimately a whole set of direct messages coming to my account. And what I found was that a group of people of indeterminate size have been cooking up a scheme. Now, I'm a fan of cooking up schemes. I've been involved in some really great schemes. But this particular one was something else. It was a scheme to build a new crypto token off the imagery and character of my late cat Sockington. And when these individuals started doing this, they thought that they were building up an effective get-rich-quick scheme. But what they didn't know is that they were signing up for an experiment. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Jeff Atwood, Daniel Boyd, and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. I'm not going to go into the long and storied history of Sockington the cat that dominated Twitter, got mentioned by major press, was referenced by television and radio and mass media all along the way, having a basic cat life. It's something where my own personal feelings about treating an animal like a commodity come into play. It was always important to me from the start that Socks the cat was not going to play a major part in the Sockington experience. There would be tweets and maybe a t-shirt or a keychain or badges or pins or whatever else came of it, but the cat himself was not going to be subjected to anything. When a booker for a talk show contacted me day after day, begging me to put Sockington on a plane in a carrier to come all the way to a studio where, terrified and in a strange place, he would be gawked at by millions, I declined readily, politely, but readily. And her constant badgering of me for a week trying to make Sockington happen told me that I had made the absolute right choice. Sockington was not going to suffer for a bunch of random events that were happening online. Sure, his follower counts were amusing, 300,000, 500,000, ultimately about 1,200,000 followers, or at least claimed followers, but that itself was separate. Sockington lived 18 years, the first few months as a stray, and the rest of his life as a pampered, well-treated cat with a house that he could run around in, plenty of toys and pets, and he died having known the vast majority of his life as a respected and comfortable inhabitant of where he lived. The world of Twitter and many different social media networks are a veritable burned-out wasteland. We're in a situation where people know about the wheels of manipulation that are turning constantly, the abuse, the grifts, the attacks, that are functional when you have a monetary value in having people engage with each other. What happens is that whatever gets any sort of reaction becomes valuable because you can turn reaction and attention into money. I say this objectively observing what's happening. This is how companies provide advertising, how numbers stay up for those advertisers, and how you can be assured that into the engineering goes every effort to ensure that your eye is grabbed and your attention is gotten so that it can be turned into money. And in the contemporary space, few have the level of being obvious cons than cryptocurrency. Here's a fact. If you get 50 of your friends to lend $50, you will have $2,500. That's not an insignificant chunk of change. For some people, that's their monthly salary. Have those 50 people make bets with numbers against it, pay out amounts ranging from $500 to $1,500, and you've got yourself a pretty good gig. You're taking in money and then, based on randomness, giving people money back in greater amounts. People do this because it sounds good. Now get 500 people to give $5, and they'll do it every single week, trying to play the numbers. In cryptocurrency, being able to acquire a certain amount of money from people is not itself an incredible achievement. Being able to convince folks to play around with the same amount of money that they might use for having a dinner or trying out a day at the races is not very high on the achievement scale. And so, for a number of years, people have been turning the idea of some sort of digital cash into a constantly changing narrative about how the world will be upended with seemingly endless energy and aggression and sales tactics honed over months and years. People will come at you with how you can't afford not to do this. You have to be part of the party. The party is just getting started. If it's not obvious, I fundamentally loathe these people. The only admiration I have is finding parallels and innovations in how the process works, how using different mechanisms of renting spaces and adding lights and lasers and smoke to the process represents some level of innovation. Where before you opened your door and somebody tried to grift you, now you can have remote grifting, the idea of implementing the use of celebrities or spaces or narratives, and then causing people to consider the amount of money they're putting in seed capital investment towards an eventual goal of becoming some level of millionaire or billionaire without having to lift a finger. Watching this iterate over the years has been something I've done, but not out of admiration. Just the objective observation of a person cynically unwilling to accept that anything like this will ever do good. So, one of the cryptocurrencies has innovated in terms of providing what I could best call branded sub-markets of their currency. And I'm going to explain this very quickly, just so that you have some bearings as to how it applies to my cat. This cryptocurrency, which I won't name, has a way of making branded coins underneath its platform. So think of it as selling lemonade, except you're able to put special glasses out that people pay for extra because they are that brand of lemonade. It is the same lemonade, but now it's this brand lemonade. Now imagine that people can raise the price and say, well, if it's this brand lemonade, it is so much better. I will pay $2 for this glass instead of 25 cents. I will make it limited edition. I will have limited edition lemonade, all coming from the same vat. And, by the way, lacking more often than not any actual lemons or sugar in the lemonade. So now you've got this big vat of water that you are selling as lemonade, and you are putting it in glasses, and people are paying way too much for the glasses because it's somebody famous on the glass. What will this inevitably do? People will then rush to make as many glasses as they can with as many famous people or famous figures that cause some sort of nostalgic or emotional response in a potential audience so that they can sell them as fast as possible before it turns out that they're worthless, that they are poorly printed glasses with water in them. We're in that period of time. A group has created a Sockington coin. This coin is objectively worthless, but at the time that I was looking at it, claimed to have a market capital of about $4,000. Now here's the trick. It probably isn't worth anything near that. It is a speculative coin, and people can be paying for it and doing something called wash trading, which is illegal in almost every other market, but which isn't going to be regulated within the context of these branded coins. Wash trading is where you play the part of all of the buyers and sellers, but you are agreeing with yourself to pay yourself the amount of money. Going back to our glasses of water with the poorly printed logos on them, you are claiming you are a buyer, and you are buying it from a seller, and that buyer is willing to pay $50 for a glass. But no money changes hands in the standard sense. So even though it is being listed as $50 a glass, nobody's actually spending that money. But if you're lucky, you can get somebody next to you to pay $50 because, let's be straight up here, they are not very intelligent, they do not have much information, and they are being bamboozled by seeing a brand that holds an emotional, nostalgic feeling for them. I know this is what's going on with the Sockington coin, because they started to direct message me. "Hey there, Jason," they would say. "We're doing this amazing thing with the memory of Sockington. We're putting together this incredible coin, and we want you involved." What they really want is for me to have the Sockington account endorse the coin. This didn't stop them from making their own Sockington account with a modified username, take his icon, his header, and add their own art and reprints of pictures of Sockington. They were already doing that, long before asking me, claiming this was the next big thing, and they had pushed it up to a virtual set of tens of thousands of dollars of air quotes trading, and pushing the market capital up to about $3,000. But they were running into a roadblock because, again, they're selling glasses of water. So they were reaching out to me, finally, asking me to endorse the coin. The pitch is very adorable in its naive attempts to make me commit fraud. It's somebody with nothing to offer me, claiming they are, so that I can help them perpetuate the fraud far enough that we will both make money. The level of cynicism and assumptive gullibility aimed towards me is breathtaking. These dollar store barkers working at full speed to try to convince me that we can send Sockington to the moon in the form of a coin while simultaneously talking to me in the form that they are using with the audience at large represents a turducken of misery and modern thinking. But I'm an observer. I'm fascinated at human behavior. Watching this play out, where day after day they've been sending me direct messages, begging me to be a part of their scheme, their heist, their ploy, gives me energy, gives me, most importantly, a vantage to reflect. The Sockington account, surpassing 1 million followers, happened for a very simple and arbitrary reason. Messing around with the account caught the attention of one of the founders, who then turned it into one of the default accounts you could be offered when you first signed up to Twitter. So suddenly, thousands of people were signing up for Sockington. So I kept it up. I did it because I loved the feedback. I loved having Sockington ask for pictures of cats, to only follow cats, to say funny things every day, to take daily events and remix them into the mind of a cat. It was done out of joy and art, celebrating the love that I had for this little gray cat. This tiny animal who had had such a hard life and now was being petted into oblivion by 1 million loving hands. Putting up pictures of Socks, making him look beautiful, and being given weird testimonials and mentions, it was a joyful art project. At no point did I see myself quitting my job and going full-time promoting this cat. I saw other people do this, take a small viral moment and try to build a career out of it. But it's a career built out of random spectacle, and while it implements skill to do it and keep it going, it was not a skill I wanted to develop. As we speak now, they are still hounding my door. They are still trying to make Sockington Coin happen. I am utterly uninterested in this. I'm letting them pour energy and grift statements and fear of missing out into my inbox. I'm watching them mail me, direct message me in the pursuit of their very empty, very soulless, very boring goal. To be able to convince enough people that by seeing a picture of my cat on the end of some sort of digital signature, money could be made. Money, money, money. I've lived too long, and I've seen how bad life gets when money becomes the sole reason for doing something, for turning excitement and experimentation and camaraderie and friendship into a raw material that you can mine into some sort of token. I'm not built that way. I don't think I ever was. The excitement of seeing money drop into my hands, that's real. That's palpable. People who have been generous with me over the years and helped me when I was in need, people who are helping me now, are welcome. And I try, I really do, to be as transparent with where the money goes and what I'm using it for and why I think it's a good idea, while also not using lies and manipulation and puffery to turn all of that good and well-meaning altruism into a spigot. The experiment continues. I log all their messages, I record all their pleas. Whatever I make of that, whatever I end up turning the result of it into, besides this episode, will be something that I do for the joy of it, for the commentary, to be able to maybe grind all of this cynicism into something fun and entertaining. But there's always a chance that this raw material of human greed, avarice, and self-delusion is simply not fungible. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, thanks to James Bekoyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Sockington died of a kidney disease that would have finished him off years and years before he came to my house. He was a weird little cat, paranoid some days, loving in others, but always living his own best life. I remember his twitchy tail that enabled me to know that he wasn't in a mood to be picked up, which for me just meant pick him up carefully. I remember his funny, broken meow, the haughty way he would walk around and look at things. But most of all, I remember those beautiful eyes. I don't think anything was behind them. But I think that this cat, able to survive for nearly 2 decades, is a testimony of what happens when you enter into an endeavor that you never expected and give it respect and love and truth.